And they all laughed. They says, very good. This is correct. And the professors looked at me and they said, this guy's correct. We are fumbling, bumbling idiots here. And, we left on good terms, but I knew they weren't going to help. So I went back to the courthouse, and of course I was arrested on site for nothing, because they couldn't establish joinder of jurisdiction because they were breaking the law on me, and I had no one to police it. So I'd go to the post office and give them commands. They wouldn't police it either. But Mr. Gray had a heart. And in his heart, when I was in jail, my father had went to the post office and asked for the help. Why aren't you honoring Russell's contracts? And Mr. Gray said this to my father. He says, we've made the gravest of mistakes here. My dad says, what do you mean? He says, they're running an honest man through the newspaper. Tell Russell when he gets out to come on by. My dad come down to the jail, and they let him come in to talk to me. I'm like, he's not going to help. I was a little disturbed. He's not going to help me? This was in 99. They says, no, he's not going to help, my dad said. I says, well, no one's here to help me. I guess I'm going to have to figure this out for myself. He goes, you should just traverse, blah, blah, blah. I says, no, I can't do that. I says, I'm correct. I can't stop being correct. And I got out of that case, and I went back to see Mr. Gray and confront him on why he did not help me. And when I got there, Maria, the clerk, the postal clerk, says, you're out. I was like, yeah. They says, John left something for you. I go, what do you mean John left something for me? And he says, John is retired, officially. But he left this package for you. What? I opened up the package, and there was the job form for the application of a postal nospector or inspector for the Postmaster General of the United States Postal Service. And so immediately I syntexed that. I mailed it into the U.S. Post Office, the headquarters in Washington, D.C., and on the green card label, instead of, I had handwritten U.S. Postmaster General Russell-J. Gould, they placed a label over what I had mailed them. Labels are classified as tickets. Tickets are classified as postage stamps. And when I autographed it, it made me Postmaster General of the United States Postal Service at 475 Lafayette Plaza, Southwest Lafayette Plaza in Washington, D.C. I just became Postmaster General of the United States Postal Service by mechanics. And I knew that they were going to have to leave the federal government. I'm like, because I saw the bankruptcy come, I was like, well, this still doesn't change anything on this bankruptcy problem we got going on here.
People are used as collateral with other nations because the U.S. is bankrupt.
Because the end of the 70-year moratorium was coming up. And I told my grandma, I said, I'm back to my grandma, I apologize, I'm kind of skipping around here a little. But my grandma's like, you got to go to school, you got to go get into your education. I said, yeah, I will, but if they announce that there's no president on this specific night, then I'm this person on the post. I'm the only guy under contract in the District of Columbia. I'm the only guy with a contract because the system was ending. Now, one of the unique functions of my studies with Mr. Gray is he took me into Title 39, which is the mechanics for the post office. And I got to learn under Title 39, Section 101, the first subsection of the Postal-Mechanics for the United States Postal Service was the post office always had to have a constitution and they always had to have a president. But on that specific day of November 7th, 2000, they physically had to vacate, which means they physically had to leave the presidency, they had to leave the Constitution, and that's what the Florida Chads was about. All the people were bought into the Florida Chads, but they physically had to vacate the federal government, the trustee of the federal government. But I was the only guy with the contract in play at that time. During that time frame, before that, my partner at the time, David Winkle and Miller, and myself filed for the mechanics of grammar for the Title IV 1 to 1.9 dimension flags, sections 1, 2, and 3. We quantumized that on August 12, 1999, and we filed that before they came out of bankruptcy at the United Nations. And we were given our sovereignty status at the United Nations for the flag, because the United States government was coming out of the bankruptcy on September 12th of that year, 1999. In the studies of the slavery of mankind, there is a charter corporation that countries take to their corporate entities for the identification of parcel, land, their ability to communicate, which means the alphabet, the numerical systems that they're using to create sums and differences, not only for communication, but for the mathematical sequences to find the adding, the subtracting, all the mathematical functions of that country go on publication at the International Bureaus of Weights and Measures, which is an adjective, pronoun, adverb, verb scenario. There's no such thing as a verb weight. There's no such thing as a verb measures, because of is an adverb, but because it lacks the article to command the authority of the fact. So now of is the adverb making weights and measures a verb. No such thing. It's all fictitious conveyance of grammar. At a later date and later time, I would sue for those charters and have my own global hyphen bureau of the weights and measures. But at that specific time in Washington, D.C. of 1999, the technology, I had not found it out yet till a later date. But their bills of the ladings were null and void, which means that meant that their birth certificate system for creating our fellow mankind as a slave was gone.